Our sun, just one of billions of stars in our galaxy, just one of billions of galaxies in the universe. Are we really alone?
Estimate of the situation.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection. Late this afternoon, a bulletin from New Mexico suggested that the widely publicized mystery of the flying saucers may soon be solved. Army Air Force officers reported that one of the strange discs had been found and inspected sometime last week. Our correspondents in Los Angeles and Chicago have been in contact with Army officials endeavoring to obtain all possible late information. Joe Wilson reports to us now from Chicago. The Army may be getting to the bottom of all this talk about the so-called flying saucers. As a matter of fact, the 509th Atomic Bomb Group headquarters at Roswell, New Mexico, reports that it has received one of the discs, which landed on a ranch outside Roswell. The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico, and the rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer. Colonel William Blanchard of the Roswell Air Base refuses to give details of what the flying disc looks like. In Fort Worth, Texas, where the object was first sent, Brigadier General Roger Ramey says that it is being shipped by air to the AAF Research Center at Wright Field, Ohio.
The identity of this man is unknown. What is known is that he is an expert on advanced propulsion systems and foreign technology. He is yet to discover his destination. The gentlemen with him are from an undisclosed government agency. On arrival at the Pentagon, the group enters a little used side door to escape the gaze of the press and public.
After the fateful events of the summer of 1947, which peaked with the famous Kenneth Arnold sighting on June the 24th, government and military officials realized the need to be at the forefront of UFO investigations. Coming so soon after the Second World War and the use of atomic bombs, the general assumption was that UFOs were some secret development of the U.S. military. The more suspicious among the interested were of the view that the flying objects were Soviet spy planes or worse. Then came the mysterious Roswell incident in which Colonel Blanchard, the press office of the U.S. Air Base of the 509th Bomber Division near the town of Roswell in New Mexico, authorized the announcement of the capture of a flying disc, the remaining parts of which would be sent on to Wright Field in Dayton, Ohio. But, less than 24 hours later, General Roger Ramey flew in from Washington to hold a press meeting, where pieces of balsa wood and tinfoil were presented as wreckage. A new press release stated the object was just a weather balloon, but that the disc and balloon would be sent on to Wright Field for further inspection. Mystery solved. Or was it? Over the next few months, some of the biggest changes to government military structure in peacetime were rushed into place. The new brought in the separation of the Army and the Air Force, the creation of the CIA, the first director of which would be the Secretary of the Navy, closer military ties with the United Kingdom, and the creation of rapid reaction crash retrieval teams, specializing in foreign objects, and headed by the Atomic Energy Commission. A special panel was set up to investigate the UFO problem soon after the first surveys of public opinion, and as UFO sightings increased, the public were requested for assistance by the military, who offered a reward for information leading to the capture of a flying saucer. Then, in 1949, the first official study sponsored by the government came to the conclusion that at least a few sightings were of genuine mysterious advanced aircraft, seemingly under intelligent control, and possibly originating from outer space. Increasingly bizarre reports flooded in from reliable sources, prompting the launch of the government's analysis of the subject, with Project Sun followed soon after with Project Grudge. Then in the early 1950s came the setting up of the Robertson Panel. The decision to play down the subject by declaring sightings as misidentifications or hoaxes was made. Efforts to enlist Disney and other film and TV companies to ridicule flying saucers and aliens were suggested, and a new official study, secretly designed to explain away UFOs, was launched soon after. Captain Ed Ruppelt and a small team including science advisor J. Allen Hynek were not given enough funds or assistance to undertake a real investigation. As a result, no one from the ill-fated Project Blue Book was on the scene during the repeated incursions into restricted airspace over Washington. Multiple eyewitnesses, radar confirmation from several sites, and visual contact by pilots scrambled to intercept the objects typified the events of several days of overflights. What should have been an epoch-making occurrence was soon relegated to the annals of history. In time, Captain Ruppelt and scientist J. Allen Hynek began to change their views about the reality of the phenomenon. Hynek, whose explanations failed to awe our public suspicion, went on to become an eminent researcher into the subject of UFOs. Eventually, Project Blue Book was closed in the late 60s on the advice of the infamous Condon Report. Less than a year before the Apollo moon landing and the creation of a new law that forbade communication with extraterrestrials.
Our distinguished guest, Dr. Willie Ley, renowned scientist and author of rockets, missiles, and space travel.
Well, I believe that people are seeing something. Just what it is a different question. Only about 15% are, or let's say, mysterious.
Well, it's that 15%, of course, that we're terrifically interested in.
That is the 15% we have to worry about, yes.
Now, that's the 15% that, do you have an explanation for that 15%?
Unfortunately, not only one. Number one, which was the most pleasing to believe, that they were secret experiments of our armed forces. This explanation has to be considered obsolete, because the armed forces, A, have repeatedly declared that they are not of their making, the flying saucers, and B, it would be highly unlikely that one branch of the government spends money, time, effort, and machinery on investigating something done by another branch of the government. The second explanation, advanced by some, were that they were secret experiments of the Russians. This is unlikely. I can't tell you without looking it up how many square miles there are in the United States, but I do know that the Russians have 3 times as many square miles in which to make secret experiments.
You mean they would have their own flying saucers all over their own territory?
They would have them over their own territory.
Well, how about their being equipped with photographic instruments or something of that sort?
Well, most reports insist that the flying saucers are quite high, and what you could see from the altitudes at which they are supposed to fly isn't worth reporting.
Now, number 3, what
number 3 is a widely publicized belief that they are of interplanetary origin.
Well, I notice a good many, or several, rather reputable people think that they may be of interplanetary origin. What do you think of that, sir?
Well, I am not principally opposed to an alien spaceship landing tomorrow and teaching us a lot of things which we can't do ourselves yet, but I don't think the flying saucers are it.
And why do you think that they cannot be interplanetary spaceships?
For, in the first place, the fact which is often stressed, that they are completely noiseless. No matter how advanced somebody else's engineering might be, it is impossible to shove a massive structure at high speed through the atmosphere without making some noise. Secondly, most of the estimates of the flying saucers, the size estimates, run to about 100 feet in diameter. This is far too small for anything to make such a long trip as the distance between planets. At this moment, Mars is still in the sky and visible, and is 80 million miles away. And for anything that has to make a trip of 80 million miles, I wouldn't be satisfied with a diameter of 100 feet.
Well, then you think these are natural phenomena?
That is the
so-called
fourth
flying saucers?
explanation which is left, that of a natural phenomenon. Now, I like to stress one point here. Flying saucers are not new. If you have the necessary time and patience to read through all old files of magazines, especially meteorological magazines, you will find reports in them which by now would be labeled flying saucers.
They weren't labeled flying saucers.
No, no.
Flying saucers is just a new name for something that's been seen for a long time.
Which has on and off, at long intervals, been seen for a long time. So this ties in with the idea that it might be a natural phenomenon which either escaped attention in the past because fewer people looked into the sky, or else which actually was rarer.
Well, now, is our own government, our own Defense Department, taking the balloon reports, the flying saucer reports, seriously?
They have to. After all, the Air Force, which is the one which is investigating, is charged with the defense of our skies. So if there is anything in the skies which they don't know and cannot account for, it makes them understandably uneasy.